Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Daly. I spent 20 years with United Press International, most of it with the old UPI Radio Network. And my favorite assignment was going on the road producing and hosting American Montage. It was an hour-long weekly program. Now here's an edited version of one of those shows. What constitutes a celebrity? Someone who's in all the magazines or on radio or television or in the movies or now on the internet? Well, I interviewed a gentleman who became a celebrity over the years. At that time, he was a minor one, and that was in the world of finance. His name was David Bach. He was one of the most energetic people I ever interviewed. He's a financial guru, and in these tough times, he has helped an awful lot of people keep their head above water through his regular programs and also his many, many books. David Bach, as I say, in the world of finance is very, very well known. And on the American Montage show, I was able to introduce him to my audience. I asked him how he first got involved in investing and found out it was when he was a young kid.
I grew up as a strange child because at the age of 7, I was very close with my grandmother, all through my life, actually. My grandmother, unfortunately, recently passed away a year ago, but my grandmother was a very, very unique woman in the fact that she was an investor 50 years ago when a lot of women were not investors back then. And one day, at the age of 7, I was at McDonald's with her, and it was my favorite restaurant in the whole world. And she looked at me and she said, "You know, David, instead of being somebody that comes here and spends money, you could actually own this place and make money." And I was 7 years old, and I looked at grandmother, and I said to her, "Well, what do you mean I could own McDonald's? I'd have to be a millionaire." And she said, "No, it's not true." And she proceeded at lunchtime to take out the newspaper while I was eating my Big Mac and French fries and show me that McDonald's was a publicly traded stock, opened up the business section, and then she showed me what it was trading for. I think it was like $15 at the time. And she said, "You know, David, if we stopped coming here every week for about 3 months and you saved that money that we normally spend here," she said, "you could buy a share of stock in McDonald's and be an owner." And I got all excited. I mean, I went back home. I told my parents that I was going to own McDonald's. I told all my friends at school I was going to own McDonald's. And about 90 days later, that's exactly what I did. My grandmother helped me buy my first share of stock. And it changed my whole life because from then on, not only was I excited that I owned McDonald's, but everywhere I went, I wanted to know if I could be an owner. You know, like a year later, we went to Disneyland, and the first thing I said to my parents was, "Well, can we buy Disneyland?" You know, and a lot of parents take their kids to Disneyland, but not many parents are teaching their kids how to own Disneyland.
Sure.
And the second stock I bought was Disneyland. So I've been investing ever since. My family's been in the investment business for years. My father's been a financial advisor for 35 years. And I got into the business in 1993. And since then, I've helped thousands of people learn how to get smart about money by teaching investment classes. And I manage about $600 million right now for individual investors.
I keep using the excuse for why I'm not in the market. The fact that my dad loathed the stock market. I don't want to get too heavily into this, but I just wonder how many people grew up getting from their parents that work ethic that was driven by the Depression, where my dad thought if you didn't get your hands dirty, it wasn't legitimate work. He would cheer when the stock market went down. I mean, he would just laugh at all these people who were losing their money. Do some people... Obviously, I still feel that way, but do some people still shy away from the market for odd reasons?
Well, I mean, more people are investing today than ever before. And one of the things I always say that in my seminars is this. At age 30, we're thinking about retirement planning. At age 40, we're starting to worry about it. And at age 50, we start to hyperventilate. And at age 50 right now, we've got somebody in this country every 7 seconds is turning 50. And there are a lot of people who are 50 right now that have done no planning. And so they're in a position where they have to play catch-up. And as a result, we have more money going in the stock market than ever before because while many people were raised with this depression concept of, hey, it's got to be safe, it's got to be in a bank, it's got to be secure, it's got to be guaranteed, the reality is right now if you own a guaranteed investment like a certificate of deposit, you're earning 4% and it's taxable. And so after taxes, you're really only earning 2%. And that means after inflation, you're going backwards every single year, which is basically called going broke safely. So you have to invest some money in the stock market if you want to have enough money to live with for the rest of your life.
David, we hear a lot about stocks that have just shot up overnight. Sure, the stock market goes up and down, but aren't there a lot of people who've really made a killing by hitching their wagon to the right star at the right time? That there have been some stocks that have absolutely so outperformed. On 60 Minutes 2 recently, they interviewed the CEO of Amazon.com.
Multi-billionaire.
Who has a little tiny office with an old desk, and you wouldn't know it. But tell us, if you will, and I'm not saying that you advocate getting in, with risky businesses, right, but tell us about some of the well-known stocks that if a person had gotten in at the right time, they'd be a millionaire right now.
Well, let's just use two recent internet stocks, Amazon.com and Yahoo, which everybody knows those two stocks right now. Had you put $10,000 into Amazon.com last January, and had you put $10,000 into Yahoo, so $20,000 total, you'd have about $1.2 million from a $20,000 investment. Now, that is truly extraordinary, and that is truly the exception to the rule. But what's so exciting about the stock market is that you don't have to find the Amazon.coms of the world. Hey, if you bought Microsoft 10 years after it came out, you still made 10 times your money. I mean, there's so many companies out there. We were talking before this, how I've missed some of these good companies, how personally I started buying Dell computers. In 1993, I think I bought my first Dell computer. Well, had I put $10,000 into Dell back in 1993, I think today I'd have around $500,000-$600,000 in Dell stock. And so what I tell people is this. You've heard the old statement that the rich get richer and the poor get poor. It's not really the case. The truth is that the knowledgeable get wealthier and the ignorant stay poor. And I don't mean that people are ignorant. I mean that people are literally ignorant about money.
Classic ignorance.
Classic ignorance, yeah. Where they don't know anything, where they don't understand why they should be using a retirement account, or where they're consistently spending more money than they make. And, today in America, they say for everybody who's age 50, if you put two people in a room, they're both 50, one of them has less than $10,000 saved.
I told David that I grew up in rural Indiana, that I had a great story I like to tell, and that when I was a kid, there was a man in my hometown named Brooks Allen. And Brooks was a retiree who had moved back to the city, and he did a little radio show called The Old Timer, in which basically he found what had happened 100 years ago that week or 25 years ago that week. And he was the third generation of the family that owned the building and loan in my hometown, kind of like George Bailey's family. And I remember as a senior in college, I had to do, as an assignment, a radio interview with someone in finance. So I'm home one weekend, and I knew Brooks, and we sat down. I still have the tape, and I sound so funny at age 20. But he said something to me that I think should be emblazoned on every credit card sent out. It's a short little phrase that he didn't make up, that I've never lived by. He looked at me and he said, instant credit is instant debt. Instant credit is instant debt. And boy, actually instant credit is instant smile. It's instant everything else. But I wish I had lived by those words, because he was so prophetic when he said that.
No, that's really true.
But, when I went through, Donald Trump and I have both gone through bankruptcy, so I don't feel bad talking about this. But I was laid off for 10 months. It was the year of the Gulf War, whenever, 91, 90. And ended up going through bankruptcy. I was meeting my credit card payments just fine until the income stopped. And I remember at the time, after the bankruptcy was finalized, I got 4 letters from companies offering me credit cards.
Isn't that incredible? Because
the rationale was I couldn't walk out on them. I couldn't declare bankruptcy immediately again. And I threw the applications away.
Well, I tell, especially the women that are listening, the credit card companies now want you to become their customer, because they know that women are taking over the world as far as finances go. And they're making it easier and easier for women to get credit cards. And I'm trying as hard as I can to persuade women, don't sign up for these credit cards. Don't get involved in what I call credit card roulette, where you are literally just getting all these credit cards and then you're moving them from card to card to get lower interest. Get off the credit card spiral. I think it's so important for women to take charge of their financial future. And I don't mean just taking charge of your spending. but knowing where the investments are in your life and in your family's life.
David, I want to thank you for coming down to L.A. to talk to us. Let's do this again sometime.
I love to.
Thanks
a lot.
Very
fun. Thank you, Dennis.
And there you have it, another edited episode of one of the American Montage programs prepared for the UPI Radio Network back in the 1980s and 90s. I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for listening. Thanks for going with me this week. And check YouTube for more American Montage programs.